story starts that one of the most beautiful buildings built after the earthquake is the Opera House, which was designed by Slovenian architecture studio called the Studio 77. And it's very futuristic design, and it's full of sharp angles and not orthogonal geometry. And it also kind of simulates to those spaceship from Star Wars movie or the Space Odyssey by Kubrick. So because this building was one of the few buildings that were not facaded, I had an idea to make a model which flies. It's inflated with helium and flies like a zeppelin or like a spaceship in the sky. And it's a symbol of freedom, that it's detached from that context that it's destroying all the modern buildings. But of course, because we don't have enough time in this exhibition or funds to make the model fly, as in Skopje, we are building a light material styrofoam model that is hanged on thin cables and looks as if it's levitating. More than half of my projects are collaborative projects, because one of my main themes I want to state with my art projects is the importance of the critical thinking of the general audience, and that every one of us has to think and do things more critically. Today, in a period where a lot of governments or institutions that should think critically are not doing their job, and making artworks in which not only I stress people to think critically, but also teach them to communicate in a metaphorical way, which is more easy to comprehend and stays more in people's minds than a normal rational communication. Well, what is interesting is that for Skopje, that brutalist or modernist architecture from the 60s and the 70s became, after the big earthquake of '63, became like the identity of the city. It was a city 90% destroyed by an earthquake, and there was a completely new, modernist, almost utopian city being built. But because this government now is very nationalist and very, let's say, not traditional, but it's trying to it's even trying to destroy modern values and secular values, and is trying to build a new system based on tradition and on the nationalism, and they are now in process of not conservating the modern and brutalist architecture, but destroying it, and most of it also covering modernist and brutalist building with new facade in some kitsch pseudo-classical style. Of course, the problem is that really general population. For the general population, there hasn't been an general education in history of art and how to value art and also architecture. So only the architecture students and architects can understand the negative part of this change, and they are constantly protesting for 5 years, but the government is making so huge propaganda and that it's kind of fighting strongly their opposition. Yes, we, like many, very small percent of activists in Macedonia or intellectuals, are trying to fight them if we can really stop the building, we are trying with activists and artwork to trying to stop their propaganda. And this is one example. There are many also non-government organizations and informal groups, but because the funds are lacking, only foreign institutions support non-government organizations in Macedonia, and with small fundings, the percentage of the funded actions or projects for maintaining good urban design or maintaining the parks in which are being destroyed, or even conserving some of the buildings from that period, from the modernist period. A lot of things are done on informal groups and activists who really, what we did in the last year is, after this government refacaded all the brutalist buildings with these pseudo-classical facades made of styrofoam, we destroyed them by throwing paint on them and looking as abstract painting on top of neoclassical style buildings. We were very happy when that happened, because after 1 year of months and months of strong protests, peaceful protests, we didn't saw any change in the process of stopping that madness of refacading the whole city in a neoclassical style. Then when the people gained courage to start destroying those, because the government, what they built is a styrofoam building, but then they even registered those new facades, styrofoam facades, as a national heritage, and didn't register the building, the Brutalist building, which is behind that facade, as a national heritage, and what should have been done, what we think, architects and artists. Yeah, people were really happy, and of course this very big protest of building a whole new city, neoclassical style, and then in a year destroying by throwing paint on that, was very also not important in local scene, but also in the international.